I just found my old budget spreadsheet from January of 2022, and I thought it would be fun in this video to compare my old budget, so my January 2022 budget, to my current budget, which is obviously August of 2024, and just kind of have that conversation around lifestyle creep, because you're gonna see when I compare these, but I spend significantly more money now than I did 3 years ago. My income has gone up a lot in those 3 years. Obviously, I'm at a much different point in my life. I was right out of college in 2022, and now I'm in my mid-20s. My budget overall looks totally different, and we're gonna look at the numbers, but I spend about double that I did 3 years ago, which is kind of crazy to think about. But the reason why I went digging for my old budget spreadsheet was because I've been thinking a lot lately about how much more expensive my life is today than it was 3 years ago. I'm not making this video talking about like the cost of goods or anything like that. Obviously that does play a role in it, but I'm talking more so from that lifestyle inflation perspective. I do make a lot more money now than I did 3 years ago, but I also spend a lot more money now than I did 3 years ago. And I'm also totally not making this video talking about how all lifestyle inflation is bad. I honestly don't love the term lifestyle inflation, because I think a lot of times it's used to kind of like shame people for wanting to make more money for the purpose of improving their quality of life today. Like, I do think that you should want to make more money to be able to afford things that you couldn't afford when you didn't make that amount of money. But rather, I want this to be more of an eye-opener of how just because you make more money, or you might make more money in the future, that doesn't automatically mean that you're going to be able to save and invest more money later on. Like, the differences in these two budgets that we're going to look at, those differences didn't happen overnight. I didn't wake up one day and just say like, oh, well, now I'm making way more money, so let's double the amount of money that I spend. These were like small incremental changes that I've made to my lifestyle over time that inherently have made my spending so much more. I guess with that, the point of me making this video is just to kind of talk about why the mindset of, well, I don't make enough money right now to save or to invest, but when I do increase my income, that's when I'm gonna start saving, and that's when I'm gonna start investing. That mindset doesn't work. You're gonna see in my budget from January of 2022 that even though I was making a lot less money back then, I still saved and I still invested a little bit every single month, because I made that a priority of setting and hitting financial goals super early on when I wasn't making a lot of money. That's the time to start building all of those habits. So then when I do slowly start to inflate my lifestyle, I'm already used to saving and investing a percentage of my income. So again, in this video, we're going to be comparing my budget from January 2022 to August of 2024. For a little bit of context, I'm currently 25, so in January of 2022, I was pretty fresh out of college. I was working my first corporate job out of college, making $58,000 a year. Now, about 3 years later, I'm totally self-employed in the social media marketing space. I obviously do social media on my channels, and then I also have a couple of clients that I work with sort of like on a freelance capacity as well. So my income definitely has gone up over those 3 years, which you'll see in my budget. During that same period, I've paid off over $50,000 worth of debt. I had $50K in debt between student loans and a car loan. And then I also grew my investment portfolio to over 6 figures. I had some money in my investment portfolio prior to 2022, but I've obviously ramped up my investing a lot since increasing my income. So I think that's just a little bit of like helpful context when you're looking at my numbers, being like, I've increased my spending, but I'm also still prioritizing hitting financial goals. I'm not just blowing all of the money that I'm making, even though it does seem like I've definitely inflated my lifestyle, which I have. Okay, so here we are in my 2024 budget template. My computer is over here, so I'm gonna be like looking this way. That's what I'm looking at. And this is my 2024 budget. This is my own template. I can link this in the description of this video if you're interested in getting a copy. This is the 2024 version. This is the 2022 version, which obviously doesn't look as pretty, doesn't have as much functionality, but I have been using my own spreadsheets for the past couple of years. I started building my own spreadsheets because I like wasn't really loving any of the ones that were like out on Etsy or anything like that. A lot of them were too complicated for me to like get any use out of, so I started building my own. In this video, we're going to be comparing the two, so I'll probably be like jumping back and forth from the different screens, but I thought that this was a good way to show you like a comprehensive overview of my two budgets from the different years. We're gonna start in the 2022 version. This is on average how much money I spent in the first couple of months of 2022. This time my income was roughly $3,400 a month. I was again working my first corporate job out of college. I was working in the audit department at a big like Fortune 50 company. Each paycheck after taxes and after deductions came to roughly $1,700, so about $3,400 a month. I'm gonna jump over to the debt section here. I said I had roughly like $50K in debt, and these were my monthly payments. So I had a car payment for $285 a month, and then I had a student loan payment that was roughly $450 a month. This time student loans were paused because of like the whole COVID situation, but I still paid onto my student loans every month because I was like trying to get ahead of them before interest came back. And I was paying $450 a month onto those loans. Now over for the expenses. So this is where I feel like we're gonna see the biggest difference between my 2022 budget and my 2024 budget. Rent was only $650 at this time. At the beginning of 2022, where was I living? So my rent was $650 from the time that I graduated from college up until the end of 2022. So about a year and a half, it was $650 a month. The first half of that, I was living in a 4-bedroom apartment with 3 girl roommates, like some of my college friends. And about halfway into that, I moved in with one of my ex-boyfriends, and I moved in with him and his college roommate. Since I was paying $650 at the other place, they like said that I could still continue paying $650, so my rent didn't change. But yeah, so I was living first with 3 girl roommates and then with 2 boy roommates for about a year, which I would never recommend, but my rent was cheap. And we were also living in their college frat house. So I was literally, they weren't in college anymore, so there weren't still currently frat parties when I was living there, but it was very much so a frat house and very much so a boy house. But my rent was cheap, so that was great, because $650 was like really all I could afford at the time to still be able to like save and invest and that kind of stuff. But groceries I had as $250 a month, and I really think that I stuck to that. I don't really remember my groceries being like significantly higher than $250 ever. When I did live with my ex, we would like split groceries a lot. I was living in Pittsburgh at the time. I primarily grocery shopped at Aldi, so really like $50 a week, and then like a little bit of a buffer. So about $250 a month. Gas, I worked from home, so gas was $100 a month. That's how much I budgeted. I would never ever go over my gas budget because I worked from home and I didn't really drive anywhere other than the gym. I always kept a miscellaneous expense bucket in my budget. This could be anything, like if I go to a doctor's appointment and there's a copay, or if I need like little miscellaneous household things, or just like random personal care, just random things like that. And then food and drinks and shopping are obviously the 2 big like discretionary income categories. I kept them at $200 a month each. I do feel like sometimes I would go over that, but I tried to keep it pretty low because I didn't have like the most amount of discretionary spending, obviously. So I tried to keep each of those at $200 a month. Bills and subscriptions was the other big category in my budget template at the time. $200 for utilities. Obviously when I had roommates and then when I lived with my ex, we would split utilities. So $200 would cover things like electric and my share of like the Wi-Fi and different things like that. I had $8 for renter's insurance. And then at the beginning of 2022 is when my ex and I got our dog. And we started paying, I paid $49 a month for, it's called Banfield, but it's like a monthly vet subscription type thing. So her office visits and stuff were covered under $49 a month. And then this pet insurance here is $35 a month. I have, because I still have the dog. But $35 a month would cover like accident and illness, that type of insurance. So I was paying about $85 a month for my dog. Miscellaneous expenses would also be pet expenses. I eventually did add in like a pet category in my budget, but miscellaneous expenses covered that at this point, I guess. And then my gym membership was $39 a month at this time. I already covered debt, so income minus this, minus this, minus this gave me my amount left to save and invest, which was $684 a month, which isn't bad. $3,400 and still having $684 left after having almost over $700 for like debt and stuff. That's not bad. Again, if I'm able to stick to this every month. That $684 goes into my saving and my investing goals. And at the time, I guess for context, at the time I already had an emergency fund. So when I graduated from college, I had a decent amount of money, actually a really good amount of money saved for a college student. I graduated with $30,000 in my savings account, and it's because like in college I got really into personal finance and just started saving as much money as I could. I worked so much in college. I made a TikTok video about all 17 of the jobs that I had before becoming self-employed, and a lot of them were in college. Was always working multiple jobs, was like really trying to increase my income and spend as little money as possible to be able to save. So I graduated with a pretty good amount of money in my savings account. So you'll see here that I wasn't really like I had this buffer here, but it was sort of like if I had money left over to save, I would throw it into my savings account at the end of the month. But my big priority at the time was making sure that I was investing $500 a month into my Roth IRA. That was sort of like a non-negotiable for me. Like when I get paid, I'm investing into my Roth IRA because like that's my one financial goal every single month. At the time, $500 a month would max out your Roth IRA because I think the limit was only $6,000. So I was trying really hard to max out my Roth IRA every year. This little pie chart right here gives you a good breakdown of like where my money was going at this time. So I kept my expenses right around 50% of my income. Bills and subscriptions were 10%. Over 20% was going to debt pay down, which I think kind of goes to show like if you can get yourself out of debt, then that frees up so much more room in your budget. I think that's like really what motivated me to start paying down my debt, was to be able to like free all of this up. Savings was 4.5% because again, just like wasn't a really big goal for me at the time to continue to save, since I already had a really good amount of money in a savings account. I wanted to invest that money. And then my investments were about 15% of my income. Now for the fun part, let's compare this budget to my 2024 budget, and we'll kind of go back and forth and I'll show you like the differences in all of the numbers, because looking at 3,400 minus 684, that's like $2,800 a month in spending. Now I spend like $5,000 a month in spending. So there's obviously a lot of differences that go with that. And again, the purpose of this is to show you like, just because you're increasing your income does not automatically mean you're gonna be able to like hit all of your financial goals and save and invest a crap ton of money. You still need to be very intentional about it because your lifestyle can definitely inflate. First, on the income side, if you've watched any of my videos before, and I think I mentioned this at the beginning of this video, I am totally self-employed now, and this is the money that I'm budgeting with on a monthly basis. Even though I'm self-employed, I do pay myself a set salary every month, so this is what gets direct deposited into my checking account every month from my business account to my personal account. I set myself up on payroll through ADP, like all of that. On top of that, I take a $3,000 monthly distribution from my business account. So that's just like the money that I decide to, like I can increase that if I want. But $3,000 is the amount that I transfer to my checking every single month. That brings my total monthly income to $7,605. So that is about double my income from 2022. And on the debt payment section, again, I became debt free over the last 3 years. So that's freed up a lot of room in my budget because nothing has to go into the debt payment section here. Between 2022 and 2024, I've changed my budget template from expenses and bills to needs and wants. That seemed like to be a lot easier for a lot of people. And I honestly really like the structure a lot better anyway. So for the needs categories, rent is like by far the biggest thing that's inflated since then. I'm no longer living with my ex-boyfriend and his college roommate in their college frat house. I live by myself now. 2022, I have moved from Pittsburgh to Nashville, but even when I was in Pittsburgh, at the beginning of 2024, I was living by myself in a 2-bedroom apartment. So even in Pittsburgh, my rent was like close to $2,000 a month. I moved down to Nashville. Now my rent is $2,300 a month, which is definitely a big expense. It's a big line item in my budget for sure. For me, this is definitely an area where I wanted to increase my income to be able to afford things like this. I wasn't happy living with roommates. I definitely wasn't happy living with my ex-boyfriend. So I really did want to be able to afford to have a place by myself. And I also spend literally 22 hours a day in my apartment. So I prioritize having a nice space. So work from home. So when I first moved out and had my first place by myself, I first moved into a 1-bedroom because it was a lot more affordable, but I realized that working from home, not having that second space for an office and now a podcast studio because I have a podcast really didn't allow me any separation between work and life, and I didn't love that either. So I like very consciously made that decision to spend as much money as I do in rent, because rent in my apartment is a lot of my lifestyle because I work from home. So moving down to Nashville, I really wanted to prioritize location. I just knew that like I was going to want to be sort of in the city and I was going to pay a premium for that. So I've totally inflated my lifestyle here. Photos and videos of the college frat house that I was living at, paying $650 a month, compared to my beautiful 2-bedroom apartment in the heart of Nashville. It's very much so an inflated lifestyle, but that's okay. On top of that, I paid $200 for utilities. Really nothing has changed between 2022 and 2024 with that. I will say that now, since I am self-employed, some of the utility stuff is their business expenses. They're not counted on this budget spreadsheet, so that is how I have been able to keep this the same. Groceries, I've increased this number to $400 a month. Groceries have definitely gone up in price since 2022, but I'm not going to like completely blame it on that. I definitely think that I like splurge in the grocery category, and I also don't restrict myself as much as I could in the grocery category. I just really prioritize eating healthy, and I also love to cook, and I love to like make new meals and make new recipes. So if I want to go to the grocery store midweek to like grab some things, I do, and I don't feel guilty about it. Whereas in 2022, I do think that I like was a lot more strategic back then, and I tried a lot harder to stick to that grocery budget. Gas, I increased this budget to $150 a month just to give myself a little bit of wiggle room, but honestly, I still work from home. Nashville's not that big. I don't drive that much. I drive like to the gym and to the grocery store, and that's really it. So I could probably bring this down to $100 a month and still be fine. Pet insurance, I still pay about $85 a month between her Banfield and her accident and illness. Renter's insurance has gone up to $24 a month. Car insurance, I have $200 a month budgeted. I still have to switch my car insurance down to Tennessee, so I don't exactly know what this number is going to be. But in 2022, I used to pay my car insurance annually, so I didn't factor it into my monthly budget because I just kind of like got it all out of the way like up front. Miscellaneous expenses, $150. Again, this could be anything from like doctor's appointments, medicine, personal care, anything like that. Food and drinks and shopping, I give myself a $500 a month budget for food and drinks and for shopping, and this sounds significantly higher than in 2022 because I had $200 here for each. But honestly, I just really like going out to eat with my friends. I like going and grabbing a cocktail with my friends. Especially being in a new city, I feel like that is a lot of like the entertainment that I do is food and drinks. And if I am spending money on entertainment, I do lump that into this category as well. This is kind of like my fun category. And then shopping, I also like to shop. I like to spend money on clothes. I like feeling confident in the clothes that I'm wearing. Yeah, this is just like frankly money that I want to spend, and I don't feel bad about that. Fitness, I just made a TikTok video about this today because I was talking about how I think it's absolutely absurd that I pay almost $200 a month for fitness. In 2022, I paid $39 a month for my gym membership, and now in Nashville I pay $170, which when I came down here, I toured the gym that I go to, and they told me it was $100 a month, and I didn't even blink twice. I was like, I love this gym. There really weren't other like options for big commercial gyms you go and like lift weights at. Nashville has a lot of like CrossFit gyms, fitness classes, that type of thing. So I was like, okay, I go to the gym every single day, like I can spend $100 on it. But then I was just starting to feel like my workouts were getting a little bit stale, and I do like fitness classes, but I like to like sprinkle them into my workouts. I don't like to primarily do fitness classes. I still like to go to the gym, but then my ideal schedule is doing like 1 to 2 fitness classes per week, right? So I signed up for ClassPass, which is $69 a month. So now I'm spending $170 on fitness, which there's worse things to spend your money on. It's definitely an investment into myself, but it's a lot more expensive than what I was spending in 2022. I have a line item in my budget now for household and pet items. I obviously have a dog. A lot of this budget goes to Bella for like food and random things like that. Like she's getting groomed today, so that's $110 that's gonna go into that. Household things, if I like need a new decoration for something, or just random things like miscellaneous wants. I ended up putting a line item in my budget for miscellaneous wants and miscellaneous needs, just because like those are two totally different things. A lot of this will go to like parking or if I run to Target and get something random, just like literally anything that can't fit into any other category. Subscriptions, I have $50 a month here. I pay for things like Netflix. My Aura ring has a $7 subscription, just little things like that. And the last two aspects of my budget in 2024 are obviously my saving and my investing goals. Again, I still have a fully funded emergency fund, so I'm not like actively contributing more money into either like an emergency fund or just a general savings account. But I do have some like more specific savings goals now that are kind of like, I save money to spend money in a couple of months or in like a year or whatever. I'm currently saving money for a home down payment. Home ownership is a goal of mine in the next couple of years. So I'm putting $500 a month towards that. And the rest of these, I have these sinking funds in my high yield savings account. So I use SoFi and they let you set up little vaults so that I can like organize my savings so that I'm like actually putting my money to a purpose, not just like throwing money into a savings account for whatever reason. So I save $300 a month for vacations, $300 a month for fun money, $200 a month for a pet fund in case I need to like get a dog sitter or something comes up with Bella or anything like that. And then $200 a month for the holidays, so like Christmas present. My investing goals, it's my goal to invest $1,000 a month into my brokerage account. That is like my, again, number one priority. Absolutely do this every single month. This is a minimum, so if I have additional money, I will invest more. But $1,000 a month is like, I do this every single month no matter what. I will say this only takes into account my post-tax investments. I'm not currently using the Roth IRA anymore because I make too much money to be able to contribute to that. But on top of this amount, I also invest into a solo 401k. So it's essentially the same thing as a regular 401k. It's just like the self-employed version. I am doing some retirement investments as well, but those are pre-tax, so they're not factored into my monthly budget. And the budget breakdown now in 2024, my needs are 46%. Wants 20%, savings 19%, and investments are 13%. And I think with that, that wraps up today's video. This is a quick and easy one. I just pulled up my 2022 budget spreadsheet and I was like, I think this would be really cool for people to see kind of like the differences in my budget between what I was making and what I was spending in 2022 versus what I'm making and what I'm spending in 2024, almost 3 years later. Again, I've definitely inflated my lifestyle. I'm the first one to admit that. I don't inherently think all lifestyle inflation is bad. I value how I spend my money so much, and I've really found like what I do value spending my money on. So I'm not gonna apologize for that. Feel free to roast my spending if you want, but I've hit a lot of financial goals over the past couple of years. I'm still actively working towards a lot of financial goals. So just because I'm making more money does not automatically mean that all of that money needs to be funneled into like savings and investments and all of that stuff. But again, I hope this is a good reminder that just because you might maybe make more money in the future doesn't automatically mean that you're going to have more money to save and invest. You like really do have to be intentional about it. If you enjoyed this video, it would mean the absolute world to me if you liked and subscribed. If there's anything else you want to see from me on my channel as well, please leave them in the comments. I love new video ideas. But with that, thanks for tuning in and happy budget day.